Heyo, and welcome to the comprehensive, full list of all the great things that came out with Pokopia 2.0, pre-spoilers, and also including the DLC. In the first part, we're going to go over the 2.0 stuff that is not part of the DLC. There are so many things that have changed the quality of life, major updates, and some fixes that happen, so without further ado, this is the section with no DLC spoilers. First off, let's talk about some settings that they added in. They have some motion sickness settings. They have the setting that you can turn off and on if you want to move while the ability wheel is open, and then there's also a place to turn on and off the prompt when you are in Magnemite form and coming out of it. I like this a lot. It's fantastic. Now, the biggest one of all of the stuff is when you are in Graveler form, you can now open your menu, eat food, suck up blocks. It's fantastic, but you can also break boulders and lumber piles and other items like that. That's huge. Some other quality of life changes are that relics can be appraised up to 10 at a time now, which is fantastic. And the collect and honey gather and appraise, and paint and stuff like that. Those prompts, they'll stay open after you've done it. So if you go to Smear Guru and you ask him to paint something, he won't just close the dialogue and you have to go talk to him again. You can actually just continue. Same thing with Vespiquen and Eldengo. It's really nice. Next thing is that trash cans actually work like trash cans. I personally like to keep a bunch of blocks for trading, but at some point you're gonna have too many, right? So trash cans now work where you can dump a bunch of items inside, and then the next day, they'll be deleted. So if you have a lot of extra blocks, there you go. Speaking of Smear Guru again, Smear Guru can now learn patterns from photos. If you have reference photos, he can now learn those patterns. Also, they fixed some of the items that caused painting problems, like consuming more paint than they were supposed to. And they also added items that can now be painted, which were not previously paintable, like the bike, the vending machine, the workbench, the bookcase, the Pokemon Center counter, the arrow sign, the handrail and stylish stool, the metal chain, and rope. Other things that have been added. While we're still on the topic of Smear Guru and Tinkmaster can follow you underwater. You have to talk to them, get a little bubble to prompt the underwater stuff, and then they can also come underwater. So if you're trying to build stuff underwater, you can now bring Smear Guru and Tinkmaster with you. They did add some new items. New items such as the safe, which is a password-locked storage box. If you play a lot of online with people, this is like a way to keep your items safe, basically. The other thing is the portal pod. We will talk about storage a lot because this is the other major quality of life update that I think just makes everything better. So the portal pod is like your ender chest. It's a chest that no matter where you have a portal pod, the stuff that you put inside of one will be in all. So if you want to put one in every area and transfer housing items or whatever, you can do that. Like, I can go in wastelands, dump a bunch of stuff inside my portal pod, and those will be available in any other location with a portal pod. However, I also discovered that you can put them next to a workbench, and the workbench will use it from the portal pod just like any other chest. So if you're building a lot of stuff in different areas, or you're like me and you have one storage facility in one area and that's it, now the portal pod can be like your mini, here's where I can put my stuff and build most things around if you're renovating a new area, right? Instead of having to go back and forth and drop storage, now you have an option, which I really like. We'll come back to storage in a second. There's another item that they added, which is the diagonal windows and the skylights. So now you have a roof option for windows and also diagonal windows that you can make like triangles with. I don't know, I like it. I'm gonna create a little book nook. Speaking of windows, you can also now change the depth of windows and doors and similar items so they can be in the middle like they normally were, or at the edge of either side of that block. So let's go back to storage. When you go into a storage box, you can now have the option to place only items that are already in there. So if you have a storage facility like I do, I can hit, okay, well, these are all resource items, and I can hit the store all same items that are already there. Or you can dump your whole inventory inside of that box. I think that this is a great way to improve the storage system overall in the entire game. So Another thing that I really like, this is when you accidentally destroy a habitat or, displace Pokemon from their homes because you accidentally picked up a block or broke something, it happens, right? Well, Pokemon will move back into it if you rebuild it in that same area. Another thing is if you pick up a piece of furniture or you move it, Pokemon get really mad about it, right? Well, they'll now notice it a lot faster now. Honestly, I just don't like seeing my Pokemon sad. Like, it was an accident, boy! Something that I found to be mostly useful in the Skylands is when you're using your dowsing machine to look for treasures, they will no longer spawn if it's in an area where if you break the block, it will be destroyed, it'll fall, bye-bye. So that will no longer be a problem, which I think was fantastic. Another thing that they added in actually updated, was the number of pictures that you can hang in your picture frame. So per area, you could only hang 10 pictures or display 10 pictures, right? I didn't know this until I was like building something and then realized I couldn't display pictures, and it gave me a prompt and being like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what? Anywho's, they upped that from 10 to 40. Another thing that they did was they added more capacity for generators. So instead of 64, it's now doubled to 128 per area. You can now have 128 electric generating sources. So that includes furnaces, windmills, etc. You can now have 128 of them, which means if you're building bigger things and you want to use a bunch of those wireless generators, you now can use more of them per area. We have Suicune and Goldengo can now follow you when you're surfing. Basically, Suicune just walks on water and Goldengo actually surfs. Yes, that's right. It's fantastic. And before we get into the spoilers, if you like this content and if you like what you're seeing, please consider leaving a like and a comment and probably a subscribe since most of you are not subscribed to the channel. I do a lot of Pokemon content, including Pokopia, but not just limited to it. I do a lot of Pokedex stuff, Nuzlocke, etc. I'm a Pokatuber, so if you like what you see, please consider supporting the channel. Now we are on to the spoilers part, so if you don't want spoilers about the DLC or anything like that, this is your warning. The first part of the DLC has the Bubbly Basin, and in the Bubbly Basin we have been introduced to a underwater world. While the free version has the dive ability, and you can now build underwater and stuff, the Bubbly Basin is primarily underwater. And it has introduced 50 new Pokemon, all of which live underwater. We have the Cloyster line and the Kingdra line and etc, etc, etc. They're all water Pokemon, or at least Pokemon that look like they should live inside water. I say that because Malamar is not a water type, but it belongs in the water, let's be real. So there have been 50 new added Pokemon, a new ability that Pokemon have, which is the Scrub ability. If you need shiny pearls, which is the only resource that you can use to build things pretty much, you now have scrubbers like Cloyster and Sharpedo, for example. They can scrub these pearls and make grubby pearls into shiny pearls, which is a resource used in a lot of different new recipes. Speaking of recipes, there are a ton of recipes that now require seashells. So another litter that drops seashells. So Shelder and Cloyster will litter seashells. And Seadra and Kingdra litter black paint. So if you're tired of going over and having the chance berry crushing, you now have an accessible black paint resource. When you're down in the Bubbly Basin DLC, not only have they added, all these different Pokemon and, recipes, they've added hundreds of items. I think they added like 200 new items between the free update and the DLC itself. And some of these are these decorative Pokeballs, which is part of habitats. They've added so many new items, which I think is fantastic. But the other thing that they added is a new recipe, which is the smoothie. So watermelons, new, obviously. You have to have it cut, so you can get Carvanha to chop up the watermelons to make them into slices, since you need them in slices. And then once they're in slices, you can use them in recipes. Now, what does smoothie do? Well, it powers up surf. So now you can surf faster, and also you can surf underwater. Without having a smoothie power up, you cannot use Lapras underwater, only on the surface. If you drink a smoothie, you can now be Lapras underwater. It also, with the sea grapes and the watermelons, it did add a few extras of the other recipes that already existed, so they have new variants now. Some of the new items that they added include things that are light sources that don't require electricity, so like the lampion and the pearl beacon thingy. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, they also added buoyant blocks, so you can build houses basically anywhere in the water. It doesn't have to be on the ground. There's another fantastic new feature, which I think is beautiful, and that is the treasure maps. So there are now treasures to find these decorative balls that we just talked about. You have to find them with treasures. It adds a new aspect to it. There's a lot of Easter eggs in the bubbly basin, and I won't spoil all of it because, well, that would defeat the purpose. But it does add a little extra to the area. More so, the story is not very long. Basically, once you get to environmental level 3 and you take on Popular's build request, that's pretty much the end of the Bubbly Basin story. But you can use the treasure maps and all that to propel the rest of your playthrough. I personally decided that it was time to live my best underwater life, and one of my most favorite items that came with the DLC is this Sharpedo submarine. Yep, I know. It's a 2 Pokemon house. It only takes an hour to build, which is far less than the other house, which takes until tomorrow. But if you don't like time skipping around a bunch, this will be a faster way to build more homes for Pokemon. And who doesn't like a shark? Just, it's cool. It's a little Sharpedo. I think it's cool. Anyway, that's one of my favorite new items. Something that I noticed is a cool tip to use. Instead of having to hold down the, sprint button to move up and down, to descend and ascend, well, you could also just do the spinny spin. So if you take your left stick and you spin it around a couple times, you will immediately spin and sink down to the bottom, which I found is probably the fastest way to sink. So if you didn't know that, there's your tip for today. Outside of there being a bunch of new items and Pokemon and stuff like that, you have an entirely new vast area, which includes a lot of shops, like the bicycle store, and a lot of, Cerulean City, Easter eggs, and things in there. So it's definitely worth exploring. There's a lot of things to build. One thing I do want to mention is the deeper you go, the darker it gets. So, just keep that in mind when you go deep down. It does get dark. But the addition of another Dream Island is where it's really at. You can get the Starmie doll through the main story Poplio's build quest. So once you get to Poplio's final quest, you'll encounter Frillish, and Frillish will have you go on a little adventure, so bring your dowsing machine, and then you can get yourself a Starmie doll. Well, Starmie doll takes you to a dream island that is also mostly underwater, and it's a sea grapes, coral, and, stuff, and grubby pearl place, but it also contains those star-speckled blocks that are used in a lot of the new recipes, and it's also a fantastic source of clay. There's a lot of clay. Just saying, it's really great. Also, the structures that are there contain a lot of items of the ornate variety, so steal a bunch of furniture and a bunch of other stuff like that. I think it's great. Saying. And there is, in fact, a legendary/mythical Pokemon. So they did add another one, which is Fion. Manaphy is obtained through the main story, and make sure you do build it a habitat because it won't leave per se, but just make it a little habitat because where it spawns that's not a habitat. But Fion is obtained the same way as Mewtwo and the legendary dogs. So you can get another mythical being. And obviously mythicals and legendaries do increase your environmental level a lot faster, so I recommend grabbing your Pokedex and checking the area to see if you have one anytime you go to this dream island. Another great item that has come with the DLC is the transmitter rods. Instead of having the wireless transmitter power generator blah 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 blocks and it costing 1 Pokemetal to build per block, you can now build 5 of these little sticks, and they also can count as some sort of light source, and they also can be placed up and like vertically or horizontally, which makes it really cool and can be implemented in designs I think a lot easier than just a block. But anyway, it takes 2 Pokemetal and 2 glass to make 5 of them, so it, in my opinion, is a little bit more efficient since you're getting 5 of them instead of 1. I mean, it's really up to you. I think that having these new transmitters is really nice because they do stack, they do have the ability to be placed in different places, and it's also just sleeker, and it's a nice little light source. There's also been some secret little things added, so for example, there are little places that you can find that are kind of like Easter eggy secret stuff, like the Ditto room, and there's other rooms where you can learn these different patterns and then, you know, hand them over to Smeargrew and you can paint them all yourself. But this is something that I found really interesting, so make sure you explore the whole map because there's so much that they added in here. And with that, I think that's all I have for our comprehensive list of all the updates and new things for Pokopia. But if there's anything I missed, please do feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'm very happy to learn what you've learned and found, or even your own experiences and things that you've seen or done in the DLC or just the free updates. I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to bring you more Pokopia and other Pokemon content in the future. Goodbye!